So welcome to today's movement and mobility session. If you can, start in a standing position because I want you to do a test by yourself to see how flexible your forward bend is. So start with both feet together and then bend all the way forward and see where you touch the ground. And we're going to remeasure this at the end. So it's okay right now if you're only touching your shin. If you're touching hands to the ground, is it just your fingertips or is it your full palm? I want to see progress ideally throughout the session today. Once you have that measurement, meet me on your back and we're going to start. You don't need the foam roller or the ball for the first one. So just go on your back, lying flat. Bring some awareness to what's touching the ground, or is there any tension in your low back, tension in your hips or your neck or middle back? And when you're ready, bring your right leg up towards your chest and grab, if you don't have any knee problems, grab underneath your knees. If you would like to modify by grabbing above or below, that's fine too. I'm going to start here and we're working on just improving the flexibility in the hip. And we'll tie this all together again at the end with that forward bend. So keep pressing on and off here each time, trying to bring your knee closer to your shoulder. With each one of these, we're going to do about 15 repetitions where you press all the way up and then back down, all the way up and back down. The pace at which you go should be determined by yourself. It's an on-off 1 or 2 second pause, just improving the mobility or the flexibility of the hip. We'll go 5 more on this side and then we'll switch over to the other side. Now, if you're getting any pinching in the front of your hip, think about bringing your leg out to the side first and then pulling it up and under, because I want to stretch underneath near the glutes or the hamstrings on the back side of the body. 2 more here. Last one, a good pull, feel that stretch. And then back down and switch sides. So I just did my right side. I'm going on to the left, again, bringing left shoulder or left knee to left shoulder, pulling all the way up and then relaxing away. Keep going on and off. As you're doing this, think about the forward bending motion, and a big part of it is we're doing it from a top-down version, but we're bringing our shoulders closer to our knees there. So this direction of the hip flexion is really important for the action of improving the movement of actually going forward. We have 5 more here. Remember, if you have any knee pain, you can grab underneath the thigh instead of over the top of the knees. Make sure your opposite leg isn't pulling off the ground as you bring your knee towards your shoulder. 2 more. Last one. Good. So we're starting to loosen up the hips. The next thing, grab your foam roller and you're going to bring it underneath your hips. I am going to start on my right side and we're going to work on the back side of the hamstrings. So as you're going into that position, you'll lean a little bit more onto your side, and we're going on the back side here, more towards the outside. So working that outer line of the hamstring where your hamstring meets your IT band. Once you're in that position, I prefer to bring my leg over the top as I rock back and forth. And that just gives me more motion or more leverage. And then I'm working the hamstring all the way up from the hip down to where it attaches on the other side of the knee. With this one, I'm not actually crossing the knee, but just taking the length, and I'm building some inventory into what feels most tender or tense. Keep rolling back and forth. And in just a minute, we'll stop at a certain spot and add some extra movement to it. With myself, I can feel there's a point way up at the hip where it meets the IT band, the backside of the IT band. And I also feel it about halfway through, there's a good tension point. But ideally, this feels good all around, just moving back and forth over it. I want you to go back to that most tense point And then from this movement, if your leg is over the top, bring it back. And so you're gonna bring both hands onto the ground over that tense point, still on the outer hamstring. From here, roll your leg in and out by means of turning your foot towards the midline and then back away. So you're rocking back and forth over that point of tension on the outer hamstring. As you start adding the movement, if you feel like you're losing somewhat of the tension, you can slide over to a different spot, or instead of having both hands on the ground, you can have one hand on the ground and the other leg or the other hand pushing into the outer hamstring area too. On that theme of roughly 15 repetitions, we have 5 more here, in and out. Last 3, 2, last 1, and then switch over to the other side. For camera purposes, I'm gonna turn my body, so I'm gonna start working the outer hamstring here. You can either do the variation of leg going over the top or keeping it back behind you, rolling along the outer hamstring all the way from where it attaches in the hip down across the knee. What you're probably noticing is some side-to-side differences, and that's okay. We all did various amounts of different things this weekend, and it could have been something as simple as a long car ride or doing too much of a certain movement that just caused some side-to-side differences. Keep rolling all the way up and down. And when I say outer hamstring, I guess I should clarify, we have 3 hamstring muscles on either side, and one of them is on the outside, 2 of them go to the inside. So we're just hitting that outer border, which is often tight, which limits our forward bending movement, which is what we're gonna focus on today. Once you found that point of tension, go back to that spot and then start again, rolling your leg in and out. It's a hip rotation, but the movement is really, you're gonna see the movement more at your foot and ankle than anything because you're rolling your foot in and out. And so that's kind of your guiding light there. On this side, I'm gonna go to a second spot and then keep rolling in and out. We have 10 more seconds here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Put the foam roller aside. So we just hit the hamstrings on both sides with the foam roller. Now we're gonna continue by opening up that movement. We just loosened it up. So now let's improve that muscle memory. Going back to the first side, bring your right leg up over the left. So it's resting on the other side of my left knee. And then with my left hand, I'm pulling my right knee towards my left shoulder. So I pull that in and then lift tall through my spine. This is the starting requirement here. From there, it's an on-off movement, pulling my knee towards my opposite shoulder, stretching across here every time. Again, go at your own pace, on and off. So if you do yoga, there is a pigeon stretch, which is a big outer hip stretch, or a figure 4 stretch. Those are both, you should feel it in a similar spot. That's that outer hip area, those outer hip rotators, which need to let go when you bend forward, and they need to generate tension also as you come back up. So we're loosening up this region to help with the big overall movement. Flossing on and off. 5 more. 4, 3, remember to really press up, draw on your core. 2 more. Last one. And switch sides. This time my left leg is going over my right. I'm gonna bring my left hand down behind me and push myself upright. Right arm comes over, grabs the left knee, and go on and off. Now I like to talk about my own physical things that I work through and that I feel, just to give more information to you all. On this side, I get more of a pinch on the inner groin area, and that's okay. That just means that something's going on in this hip where it's not stretching as much, isolating there. So I'm going to play around with my spine position, pushing upright more, drawing in my abdominals just to see if I can change that pinch and get more of a stretch. 5 more here. 4, 3, 2, last one. After that one, grab the foam roller again, and we are going to start on the right side with this next one. Bring the foam roller underneath your hips. And this is kind of, we've done this before, but it's a different movement where you're going to bring your right leg over your left. So you're going into that figure 4 position that I had talked about. And then from here, we want to work on the outer hip muscles. So roll your body towards the right side so you're over those side hip muscles more. And then rock up and down on the foam roller. This is our prep, and we're going to take it into a more intense version here in just a second. If you don't feel like you have enough pressure on the foam roller, you can change your hand position or consider rolling your body over to the side more while still in that figure 4 position. In about 5 seconds, we're going to stop at a specific spot to start feeling different points of tension. Once you found that spot, from here, you might want to look up for a second. So I'm straightening my arm and drawing in through my core. So I'm lifting my spine, and then my opposite arm is going on top of the leg. And this time I'm pressing down and then back up. So I'm stretching the outer hip, and then each time letting go and then working on those muscles over that point of tension. Keep going on and off. What's nice is that if I push through my hand more and almost lengthen my right side, because the foam roller is on the right side, I can get more stretch just by lifting through my obliques and my abdominals. 5 more. 4, 3, keep the core pulled in. Last 2. Last 1. And then switch the foam roller onto the other side. Once again, starting criteria, start with it on your hips. Bring your left leg now over top of the right knee. And then my left hand is on the ground supporting me. And start rolling back and forth. If you want to angle your body a bit more to the left to hit those outer hip muscles, the upper outer glute area, whatever you need to do to start working on those hip rotators. Now on this side, it's almost as if there's more tension higher up into the side pelvis area. So if you would look at that on the skeleton, we have a big glute muscle in the back of the hips here. I'm working all the way up into this top part of the glute on this side, and that's okay. So I'm flossing that movement back and forth because we're hitting all the fibers of these different muscles. Find that point of tension. Bring your hand up on top of the knee and then start with that back and forth movement again here. Think about separating the movement in your hip from your core torso area. So draw in, lift and push with your hand, and then go back and forth again. The sensation needs to be in the back of the hip. So if you're feeling tension across the front of the hip flexors, I encourage you to change up the movement just a little bit. 5 more presses back and forth. 3, 2, 1 more. Good. We're continuing with the foam roller next. So with that foam roller movement, go face down, and we're going to work along the quads here from the top of the hips all the way down almost to the kneecap. To start off with, you're going to be lying on the foam roller. It's right at the hip area, elbows on the ground, and then roll back and forth the length of the quads. We're just getting familiar with the sensation right now. And then just a second, we will isolate it to one side. With both legs on here, this should feel pretty good. Now, it's time to make it more intense. Drop the weight over to your right side. So we're going to be focusing on the right quad to start with. My left leg comes off just a little bit. And then I'm using this to help press back and forth my left leg, my left foot, as I isolate the right quad. All the way up, all the way down. If you're not feeling much, I encourage you just to angle your body and then go again. Potentially angling it so the outer IT band area is on it, or you can change it up and go to the inside of the quad. Whatever your body is telling you on this one is what I encourage you to do. I'm going to go a bit more to the outside. Once you've found a point of tension along the quads, bend your knee. And then with your foot, you're going to bring it towards the midline. So I'm bringing my foot towards you. And then back towards the outside, working on hip rotation. Back and forth. What this looks like, I'm going to change the angle for 1 second for you. Is my leg is here. I'm rolling in and out. It's all about hip rotation. As you're doing this movement, draw in your core, tuck your hips under just slightly. That'll not only increase the tension of the movement, making it more effective, but then it's also going to ensure that your low back isn't trying to complete this hip rotation. I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we get to the other side in just a second. 3 more seconds here. Keep rolling back and forth. 2, 1, switch sides. Again, on the left side, start by rolling all the way up and down the length of the quad. Going back to that general movement, this should feel pretty good on the left quad to start. And in just a second, we're going to find that point of tension. Got about 6 spots I could work on right now. So if you want to hit more than one, that's fine. Once you have that point, bend your knee and continue with the back and forth, the in and out rotation of the hip. Keep going, rolling your hip in and out by means of that foot going back and forth. So what I was saying earlier is don't let your low back complete this movement. What happens with a lot of people who have low back pain is that the hips, they end up losing some of the rotation or not controlling the rotational strength. And then as a means of a secondary compensation, the low back then takes on that stress. So if your hip doesn't want to move, the next area up says, well, I guess I'll absorb that new load. And then that's where that repeated stress across a different area starts having pain. On the left side here, keep rolling back and forth. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. I was just on my left side, so I'm going to go back to my right, putting the foam roller and soft tissue ball aside. And when you're ready, meet me in what I call a half kneeling position. So right now my left knee is up, my right leg or my right knee is down on the ground. When you're in this position, draw on your abdominals. You're going to tuck your hips under slightly. And then we have a variation here of bringing the left hand down because I want you to grab your right knee to go into a stretch here. Once you have your hand on your knee, go back into this position. Now, a great variation or a great addition would be to hold on to the foam roller for support. And the movement this time is relaxing. Oh gosh, I'm losing it. Relaxing and letting go of the foot. So here, on and off with the foot, lengthening the quad muscle. What I want you to notice is that the position of your core is going to drastically change how much hip stretch you get. If I'm here and I lose it from there, Each time it's taking the stress off. Versus if I stay drawn in and tucked under, it's going to make the stretch way bigger across my quad. 5 more here. 3, 2, 1, and then switch sides. At home, I highly recommend using the foam roller for balance. As you saw, I don't know if it's the carpet or the yoga mat, but I was losing it here. This time, I'm bringing my right leg up, lean forward, grab on to your foot, go back into that tall position, draw on the core, tuck under, and then go on and off with the foot. We have 15 pulses back and forth. So because of sitting throughout the day, because of some weakness in the abdominals, I guess we could say too, the front side of our body, usually the quads and the hip flexors, they love to help out. So getting out of that area by drawing in and lifting up is going to give you a way bigger stretch, and it's going to isolate the tension. 5 more. 4, 3, 2, 1. Woo. And then go onto your back again. Nice job, everyone. No foam roller or ball needed for this one. On your back, bend both knees to about 90 degrees, so you're just in a comfortable position. And then here, this is a mini bridge movement. So you're gonna draw in your abdominals and flatten. So imagine that if you're trying to smash a ball or to smash your low back into the ground, I'm drawing in my core and then pressing in. And then it's a small raise from my hips where I'm still pulling my core in and tucking under. 1 or 2 seconds here, and then you roll back down. So it's a small bridge. Each time maintaining that deep core activation and tucking your hips under, and then relax down. Keep going here. I often tell people in the clinic, if you feel like your hamstrings are going to cramp up, you're probably doing it right, because it's sending that energy down and using the low glutes. Now, at the same time, it means that your hamstrings want to take over. So we need to work on that. But as long as you're drawing in and keeping that tuck, so at the top, if you place your hands on your low back, those muscles should feel like they're turned off. Each time, getting the glutes active, the core staying long as you draw under. 5 or 7 more here. We're going to go for 15 to 20 more seconds. And the last thing I want to say with this movement as you're doing it, if you look over towards the camera, as you bend forward, that action of tucking your hips under, it's the same thing that needs to happen here. So we're influencing those movements that are going to lead, they're important for bigger movements that we do throughout the day. When you're ready, go into an all fours position. And with this one, we're going to use the foam roller again in a different way. So it's tabletop, where your shoulders are over your hands, hips are over your knee. You will need the foam roller, and it's a coordination type of movement here. So for the foam roller, bring it across your low back. This is the balancing act right here. Once you're in that position, then we'll start, but I want to make sure everyone's here before we get going. If you're in this position and the foam roller is resting right on your low back, pull your core in slightly, and then make sure that your knees are wider than your shoulders. So right now my feet are together, and then my knees they're as wide as a yoga mat. So they're wider than my shoulders. And then I'm going to rock my hips back towards my heels as far as I can, not letting the foam roller come off, and then come back up. We only have 5 here, nice and slow. Each time I'm sending my hips back. So I'm opening up through my hips to make sure that the foam roller doesn't just fall off like that. Because if you round your back, then you're going to lose the foam roller. Keep going back and forth. So for the last one with this movement, once it's back onto your lower spine, Then you're gonna alternate a small lift with each leg. So I'm just kicking my left leg out slightly and then back down, and then my right leg. Alternating left and then right. And we just have 5 here on each side. Don't go out as far as you can. All I want is that weight shift, core activation, so pulling in deep through your core, and then getting that glute activation by the small kick out. 2 more on each side. Left, right, left. Last one on the left here, last one on the right. Good. So we have 2 more movements today and then we'll be done. The first one is going to be with the soft tissue ball. So grab the ball and then go back into a standing position. You're going to lose my head for the first part here, but start rolling the ball. And you can do this with the foam roller, but the ball is preferable all the way along the plantar fascia. So I'm going from right close to the heel all the way up to the toes, just rolling back and forth. What we'll feel in just a second is that the tension that is developing through the foot and ankle impacts the flexibility of the whole backside of your body. So find a point of tension. Right now, I am kind of right on the inside of the middle part of the arch. I'll turn my body so you can see that. And then straighten your knee, bend forward so you're going into a hamstring stretch. My legs are somewhat kickstanded. I'm drawing my hips both forward into the hamstring stretch. Once you feel that, just go on and off by curling your toes and relaxing. Curl the toes down and relax away. We have 10 repetitions here, maintaining the hamstring stretch, and then you're altering it by moving the foot and ankle. And hopefully you can feel that connection of how the tension all the way on the backside of your body changes just by moving your foot and ankle. 5 more. 4. As I curl my toes down, I'm pressing more into the ball. 3, 2, last one, switch sides. Once again, start off with all the way up and down along the plantar fascia. I'm going to turn my body for the camera. And in just a second, when you find that point of tension, kickstand your legs. I'm drawing my right leg back, straightening through my left leg, going into the hamstring stretch, and then on and off, curling and relaxing the toes. Don't worry if that toe activation feels different side to side. Because we're taking up tension everywhere else first, it changes how we can use muscles that are further away from our core. I often see people that tell me that they have terrible balance, but it's either a combination of strength or flexibility that then throws off their balance. So your ability to use your foot and ankle is somewhat determined really based on how much tension is in the whole system. 3 more. 2. Last one. And then bring the soft tissue ball to the side. The last thing I want you to do today is to retest that forward bend. So I want to see if you made any change, or it's all for yourself really, but can you go further than what you did at the beginning? Feet together. Remember to keep your knees straight. As you bend forward, are you getting past that point of where you were a second ago? I hope so. So thank you so much for joining me on Monday's full body movement routine. Hopefully you could see some of the progression. We were building up all of those components that were necessary for the forward bend at the end. So thank you for hopping on. Wednesday.